Paying to get a job is one of the stupidest things in this society. And what's even crazier is like no one thinks that it's crazy. I've spoken to so many people about this and pretty much everyone defends it. They go, oh no, it's a good thing. That's how society works. No, it's a fair system, blah, 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 blah. I don't even know what goes through the minds of these people. They are absolutely insane in my opinion. So, for example, just to become a doctor, you have to go into like $100,000 worth of debt or something like this, I was told, just to get a medical degree. And so you go 5 years, not working full time, then you have to go into debt, and then you work as an intern for long hours, not that much pay, and then to become a specialist, you go into another $100,000 of debt, and then you keep working to eventually pay that off, and apparently in your mid-40s you're allowed to be happy and blah, blah, blah. I've spoken to medical students about this, and the enthusiasm in which they defend it is absolutely insane. They go, oh, it's fantastic. And you know the craziest one they even said to me? A medical student said this to me. Oh, I'm not paying for a job. So going into debt isn't paying for a job. So going into $100,000 to $200,000 worth of debt is not paying for a job. Wow, these people are supposed to be intelligent, but apparently they are missing something in their head. Maybe I'm missing something in the head because I think it's absolutely insane that you have to pay for a damn job because working is not something I want to do. Now, I understand a lot of people want to work, and quite frankly, if you really, really had some higher reason or calling or motivation or something in your soul, your being that says, I must be a doctor at all costs, well, I guess 200,000 is worth it if you have to pay anything at all costs. But for me personally, I was born into this world, told what to do, told you have to go to school, sit in a chair, you have to do these jobs, you have to sit in an office, you have to do all these horrible, stupid things, and you can't question it. But what I don't like is, I have to do these things, but then I have to pay for the privilege to have a job. Yes, people tell me this. You're privileged to be able to work. Wow. I guess being a slave is amazing too. I mean, I could literally imagine this. I'm not even making this up. I swear I'm being serious. I could imagine slaves in ancient Rome, fighting with each other over being picked for the emperor. No, I want the emperor to pick me. I want the emperor to pick me. If social media existed in those days, I could honestly imagine some influencer in ancient Rome going, oh, buy my course and the emperor will pick you, and how to be the best slave 101 and 5 reasons to pick me is like all this crap. People would do that. People love being slaves. And that's why I don't get along with these people. Like, how do you think it's a good thing to go into debt to basically get a job? That's what it is. It's a job. Now, for some people, it's a calling, fine, but I am not most people. And quite frankly, even if it is your calling, why should you have to pay all that money? I mean, 50 years ago, I don't even know when the cutoff dates were, but university was free for a lot of people. I know older people who told me, like, yeah, they worked part-time and they studied and they had a free degree and they became doctors or lawyers or whatever, and they didn't have debt. They didn't have to pay to get a job. It's ridiculous. That's a more higher, that's a more higher level expense, $100,000. But even just like a simple, just to work at the airport, for example, you have to pay $300 to get like a aviation security clearance card thing. And like, I'm all for keeping airports safe. Don't get me wrong. I'm a logical human. I want, people to be safe. I'm not silly about this, but you have to pay $300. Like, what if you don't have $300? What if, you've got expenses, you have life? What if, here's another thing. What if life didn't go well for you? What if you're like, down to your last bit of money and you want to get a job and, I got to pay $300 and, I don't have enough money for work boots and white card, and that's a construction thing and all these courses and things you got to pay for. You have to pay to get a job. And apparently that's a good thing, and I'm crazy for not loving this. It does not make sense. It literally makes no sense. Why do people like this? Oh, society is really fair, it's fair. It's like, it's good, we're all doing our little part. I'm sure someone in the comments is going to tell this to me. Oh, you don't understand this. We're all just doing our little part to make the world go round. It's not like the rich own everything. No. It's all fair. Yes. Meritocracy, democracy, it all makes everything fair. Come on. Mental health exists. People have lives. And they're expected to just fork out all this money? Even something like security, for example. I'm just using all the examples I know of. You have to pay $1,000 for a course. Okay, it's a course you've got to pay for. But check this out. You've got to pay 600 Australian dollars for a piece of plastic just to register your license. Another $600 just to register a license. That's all. Why should that cost anything? Oh, but no, people tell me, no, it's good because the government has to keep records and all these. They come up with all these reasons. But they tax you 50% if you earn a lot of money. It's like people are so delusional. Other countries don't even have tax. You know that, right? Saudi Arabia doesn't even have tax, or barely any tax from what I understand. There's like UAE doesn't have that much tax. Even Russia has low tax from what I understand. The point is, other countries don't have crazy high taxes. Regardless of what you think of any country, this is just a point. I'm trying to make general statements here. But no, in Australia, we have huge taxes. And then, everything's ridiculous. And even if you get these jobs that you're paying for, before I go on, I want to talk about something else. Nurses and teachers, not a particularly high paid job, to be honest with you. I'm just being honest. I'm not trying to have a go at anyone, but being a nurse or a teacher is not exactly a high paid job. Let's be real. They love to pretend that, look, when you become a nurse or a teacher, you have to do a 4-year degree, which you have to pay for. The thing that gets me the most about all this, it drives me insane, is I knew so many students when I was at university. They had to do 8 weeks free work for their 4-year degree. I think it was 8 weeks every year for 4 years or 3 years. I think it was 4 years. And the thing is, they had 8 weeks unpaid. And you might say, okay, it's free. No, their degree, so that they're actually paying for this work placement. So when they work, they're actually paying for a job because their degree is expensive. So you're paying for your degree, and in that degree, you have to work for free. So you are, by default, paying for a job. And I've told people this, actually nurses, teachers, I would tell them this. Oh, you're paying for a job, basically. I'm not paying for a job. Yeah, you are. It's called debt. I'm not paying. That's not... Like, they're supposed to be intelligent. You are teaching the next generation. Well, apparently you're not teaching them that much because they all think your system is good. I honestly think there's something... People like us that see a system for what it is, it's like we think everything looks insane to us. It's distressing. It actually makes me depressed, to be honest. Like, how stupid everyone is. I'm sorry. I don't know how else to say it. Like, I don't know how else to say it. You're either delusional, stupid, or ignorant, or something. How do you not... even if you like the system, like, hey, even if you love the system, you are still paying for a job. Like, when I say this to people, they think, I'm not paying for a job, no. I think that's just denial. I think you can't dig deep and think, hang on, I actually am paying for a job. Because the thing, if you come from a well-off family or a middle-class family, it's relatively easy to, pay for a job because, family helps with living expenses. But I've known people who are very, very poor and they can't afford to do their degrees. And apparently it's a fair system, no, and if you work hard, no, it's not fair in any way. It's a ridiculous system. And obviously, I'm going to try and keep this video on topic because I could obviously deviate right now and talk about how free will and we don't control our brains, and we don't control how we feel, and different people have different levels of control. So some people have extreme mental illness and it's hard for them to regulate their emotions, and there's all these things that make life very difficult for a lot of people. But no, it's a fair system because you happen to be at the top, so therefore it's fair. Now, quite frankly, ironically, speaking of people at the top, people that I know from, actually at the top of society, they actually have a lot of money, like we're talking millions and millions of dollars in their trust fund. These people, they actually agree, yeah, it's kind of unfair, like the world's unfair. But these middle class people who are they think that it's all fair. It's like, oh my God. I don't know, people just have to cope somehow with this life, and I think they just invent reasons why it's good. But I just cannot get my head around paying for a job and why it's a good thing. Obviously some jobs aren't like this. Like tradesmen, for example, they get paid to go to be an apprentice, but even then they get paid barely any money and work to the bone for years and years and years. And I just think life's already hard enough. The fact that you then have to go out and then pay for a job, it sort of doesn't factor in that not everyone has a good starting point. If everyone started from the same point, you could almost try and make an argument. Like if everyone came from, say, everyone had a middle-class family. Just pretend for a second that there was only middle-class people existed. You could make some sort of argument that, it's somewhat, whatever. But we don't have this. Some people are from poverty. Some people are very rich. I mean, it's just... I don't like it, and what I don't like is how people defend it to the death. Out of everything, people just want to really, really pretend that that's the best way life is. Even though 50 years ago, university was free. I've heard a lot of people even say this, university can't be free because if it was free, then it would be crap and this and that. And they come up with all these mental gymnastics. Other countries have free university, but apparently it's socialist and this and that. And people just throw out words because they don't know how to cope. I remember when I said something, I think it was some sort of networking event or something, and I said something I wish university was free, and someone's like, are you a socialist? I just literally said one thing. It's you can't even say anything without people just losing their minds. People, you can't say anything about the society because people defend it. I think that by default, to be in the society and like the society, you have to have something sort of missing in your head. You have to think, okay, yeah, no, it's fair enough, and I don't know. I find it as well, for me, I just want to be free, so I look at everything through the lens of how do I make as much money as I can and get out of the system. But I guess a lot of people just like the fact that, even if you pay for your degree and you do all those things, when you get out of your degree and you start paying your debt back, you've got to buy a house, and a house, you have to have a mortgage. And then, as I said in one of my other videos, the banks sell your mortgage to as a mortgage-backed security to some rich guy. So you're basically just paying all this tax. You're then paying your mortgage, which is going to some rich guy who doesn't pay tax. And then you're there thinking, oh, well, I'm so clever, I'm middle class. It's one of the things, I'm not trying to have a go at, how do I say this? I'm making general statements here, but from my experience, talking to all kinds of people from all sections in society, middle-class people tend to be the most in denial. Really, really poor people tend to agree. They'll say, yeah, look, the system's very unfair. Really rich people say, yeah, you know what, it is kind of unfair. They sort of understand that too, to be honest. You might be surprised to hear that, but a lot of them do get it, depending on the person. But middle class people, they tend to just be so in denial of how unfair life is. And these people, they can't afford a house. Like they'll tell me, oh yeah, so I can't afford a house. And I say, well, I'll tell them why. I'll say, look, this is because, these, and just for those that don't know, in economics, essentially, if everyone has to get a loan to buy something, that artificially inflates the price of an asset. So for example, if I want to buy a house for $100,000 and I don't have $100,000, so I'll say $1 million, I have to go and get a loan. And because every single person competing for that house is getting a loan, that artificially drives the prices up. So because we have to get loans to buy a house, they're expensive as a result. So when you point this out to people, I've actually pointed this out to people, the loan thing. Loans actually destroy an interest and all this stuff. It messes up. The mortgage-backed securities caused the financial crisis in 2008. Like these things really cause problems, like on a functional level. And I've told people, very politely, just in conversation, oh, by the way, so like the fact that we all have to get loans actually destroys the housing market. People say, that's not true, that's not true. Okay, so argue with me about economics. Like, why not just say, oh yeah, like, why not even just acknowledge what I'm saying and say, actually, yes, that's a good point. If everyone has to, say that, for example, you wanted to buy some apples and you didn't have any money, so you had to borrow money to buy some apples, and everyone was doing that. By definition, you're going to be spending more money than you have, and then the apples would be more expensive, if that makes sense. It's not really an economics channel. I'd love to just talk about investing and stuff, but whatever. This is not really supposed to be an economics channel, but anyway, I'm not that great at economics, by the way. I'm just giving general, thing. But the point is, there's so much wrong with society, and also, not to mention, the biggest elephant in the room is that money loses value. I mean, I think the fact that most people even admit this, like inflation's a real thing. Like, I mean, how do I say? It's a real thing in the sense you can measure it. I mean, what I'm trying to say is, inflation exists, and as a result of that, the money you get paid from your degree is actually like worth less. So it's like, I tell people this, and I'm the bad guy. I'm always the bad guy. How dare I bring up inflation? It's like, look, most people know about inflation, which proves to me that inflation's a big deal. Because if people didn't know about it, people, what's this? What's this? The fact that people know about it, it's in the news. Like even people that don't like economics, they know about inflation. Proves that inflation's a big deal. And so I, tell someone, look, oh, by the way, you talk about like, cryptocurrency and oh, you're stupid for liking, like you can't win in this world. People I really want to be with my own people who get me, who understand this system is crazy. You just, don't even get me started on people. So what I was saying before was you can't buy a house, right? So what happens is you have to rent. And then when you rent, the rent just gets, one of my friends, his rent just keeps going up. And so he's paying all this money for rent. He has a relatively high paid job. He pays pretty much all of his money goes to rent. Like, it's just, how is that a life? Like I tell people, how is that a life? Like you just work, you have no time, and then you pay all your money to some guy who's basically getting rich off you. Like, I'm the bad guy for not liking this. But it all starts, from my opinion, this paying for a job nonsense. I cannot stand it. And if you're a person who looks around at this world and thinks, oh, this is all insane. You people are like headless chickens just walking around. That's how I feel. Seriously. I couldn't help myself. I had to make chicken noises. That's how I look at these people. It's like, you just think it's all fine, while the people behind the scenes are pulling all the strings, making a fortune off you. Like, these really, really rich people are making a fortune off your ignorance. And you don't see it. If we all saw it, we'd probably stop this crap from happening. But oh no, let's pretend that I'm the bad guy for speaking the truth, But what I was saying was, if you're a person who looks around this world and thinks, oh, this is all crazy, this system is wrong, like life is you acknowledge the world's not a very good place, and you understand all these things I'm talking about, I get you. We get each other. I take a deep breath of fresh air, just to be around people who actually understand how the system really works, because I do not like being around these fake people who pretend everything is good, and you can't have a real discussion about anything, and if you try and bring up paying for a job, they say you're bad and you're negative. Oh, so when you have to pay for a job, and I think that's stupid, I'm negative. Okay, then I'm negative. I'm sorry. Like, it's the fact I didn't make the rules. If I made the rules, we wouldn't have this crap. But whatever. I think my rant has kind of gone on and on and on. I hope someone understood what I'm saying, and I hope that someone watched the video, and thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.